Hi guys, today we will be reviewing a first-person platformer demo, and I will try to explain the logic behind the game to the best of my abilities in the Unity engine. I'll explain to you how all the different mechanics like player movement, collisions, and level design work. And at the end, we'll also try to review how to make our game visually more appealing. So here's our player object that looks like a bee. The reason for that is what we call a placeholder model. In game development, these are objects that basically imitate the desired look in the most simplistic way possible and is used for prototyping when we want to figure out the core mechanics of the game first. It's also a common practice in the first-person games like ours, since the player can never really see the object, so there is no need for intricate player models. So our being over here has a capsule collider. In Unity, visuals and logics are always separated, so even though we clearly see the beam object, without the specified collider, it would just pass through every other object. Our player movement consists of 4 directional movement using WASD keys or arrow controls, can sprint using shift button, jump using spacebar, and crouch using control button. Although it might seem difficult at first, this is all handled by few lines of code behind the scenes. For example, our 4 directional movement is calculated as follows. Unity checks every frame of the game if the player has pressed any of the movement buttons, and then applies the speed to the desired direction to our player object or the beam, imitating movement. Sprinting, on the other hand, just amplifies the speed that is applied to our character in every direction. Jumping uses colliders to check if player is located on the ground, and then desired input applies upward velocity to our character. If the code did not check for the player being on ground, you could technically jump infinitely without the need of touching the ground. That would be something we call a bug. Now that we have basic player movement figured out, we should get to the level design. Since we're trying to replicate a platformer, we will need, guess what? Platforms. Using Unity's reshaping tools, we can take the same object and stretch it in any way we want to create smaller and larger squares that the player must jump on to get to the final checkpoint. Although the jumping from one platform to another can be quite fun, we could also add dynamic obstacles to our game. For example, these walls that move around from side to side to make the player calculate the exact timing before jumping. Otherwise, the wall would just push them off the platforms. There are 2 ways to do this. First way would be to animate the block to move from side to side. But since Unity always keeps visuals apart from the logic, we should try to imitate that and recreate the moving block through code. For this, we will need to make a parent object with 2 different empty points on both sides of the wall. These are points that the wall will move between. In code for the wall, we will just specify the desired locations and ask the code to apply 3-dimensional speed to the desired location, imitating the moving wall that will knock you off. And voila! Here's our first level of the demo. But let's be honest here, it looks a bit bland, so we must fix that. To start off, we will use Unity's material system to give unique colors to each platforms. I created a few different versions and applied the materials on random to each of the platforms. Now, although the game looks much more interesting now, there is still something lacking, like the background, which looks very bland. For this, we will import an asset from the Unity Asset Store that gives us free skyboxes, which are basically a huge pixel-by-pixel pictures applied around our game level to imitate the sky, and on top of that we'll also import a small spherical sky to imitate our stars. With a sky object, game looks much better, but if we want to add a bit of a personal touch, we should choose a vibe for it. And since it's a platformer, why just not make it look as if it's an old game? For this, we'll use Unity Registry's package called Post-Processing. We will apply it to our camera object and place it on a specified layer so it can cast the effect on our player camera. Using our post-processing, we will add a bit of shading, a bit of bloom, vignette, and, of course, the grain effect, which will give our game the old school look. And that will be it for now. Game looks super interesting and is fun to play. If you wanted to improve it, you could also add multiple levels and more interesting obstacles or even enemies. There are no limits as long as you're willing to learn more about game development. I wish you all good luck and have fun with it.